Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard, of course, this new season. So it's round number 2 at TPS here in Saudi Arabia. Hope you are doing well indeed. It is indeed going to be a very, very good race ahead of us if the drivers have got anything to go by. Of course, here in Saudi Arabia, they've got a bunch of corners, 27 of them in fact, and 3.8 miles of circuit all around us, with those DRS zones that are going to be probably the biggest spike for overtaking around the field, but all of the drivers all ready and raring to go. And of course, those lineups looking fairly sharp for TPS this time. Of course, the leaders at the moment, Paradox Sim Racing, 39 points, fielding Cypher, Everquick alongside Nick. Matthew as well looking fairly strong in the last race, but serving that qualifying penalty. He is going to be alongside Logic with VSR, fielding Akos and Finn. You notice WR is missing. More on that in just a second. Teo and Montoya, fielded for Roleplay 1, St. George, with Sam McCabe and Clone Troop on their usual drivers, with Artemis fielding with JTO40 and WOR Buck. Novus Racing, the final of the teams that have scored points in the last race, Amin and Rev Caterpillar for them, with Velox yet to score points and hoping to score their first points with Quantum and Jack, as are the same for Continental as well, yet to score points with Phoenix and Bobberts. And with obviously the news that has recently come out about WR Esports, Team Shizou have now taken their spot with LCR Leopard and Piccolo fielding their team. And of course, with the recent news that you may have heard as well, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II recently announced that unfortunately Queen Elizabeth II has passed away. And of course, everyone here at TPS, the Paradox Series, and of course all of the teams, I'm sure, will be sending their regards to the royal family surrounding the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So we get on into the race, and in this event we have a great selection of drivers already and raring to go. Of course, alongside me as usual is none other than the man, the myth, the legend, that is Oliver Loveland. Thank you very much for being alongside me once again for TPS. And I tell you, all of the drivers obviously very, very sad over the recent announcement of Queen Elizabeth II, I am sure, but they're all ready and raring to go and want to race, perhaps in her memory.
News that anyone wanted to hear going into the race tonight, but the show must go on, and we'll race in her name and in her honour. So from me, rest in peace, and from all the TPS team, very sad news, but yeah, we've got a race to run, so we'll try our best to focus on that.
Yeah, of course, all the drivers were obviously very keen to want to get in there and really give this race a good go, despite the news that happened. Now, of course, as Paradox comes across the line with the fastest lap through Nick with the 27.9, but plenty of time obviously in this Q1 session. Very, very intriguing stuff though for the drivers out there. Of course, they are now racing without WOR Esports, of course. Now recently, well, the recent news that you may have seen all over Twitter, WOR Esports unable to field drivers in TPS tonight, and as a result of that one, I believe, have fully pulled out of the tournament. So they were third going into this race, but now without a drivers, Team Shizou coming into their place with incredibly quick drivers as well in LCR Leopard and Piccolo. So it's looking forward to see how the dynamic changes amongst the drivers.
Yeah, I think we've seen a big wave on Twitter of WR drivers all leaving, and by the looks of it, I'm heard that they have 0 drivers in their Xbox roster. So as TPS, a tournament, we had to take the decision to remove them. And Shizou, on the day, we literally told them to race today, and they've managed to field 2 drivers. So it's a testament to the great team that they are, and yeah, excited to have them in our tournament.
I'm looking forward to seeing how they do field them on LCR Leopard with a 30.8, obviously not a competitive lap time, you'd have to say. On the board though, as well as obviously Shizou with their first race of the season, of course CRT, Continental Racing and Velox yet to start and get a point themselves at the moment, so they'll be looking to get their first points on the board heading into this race. And one key factor as well, you may notice, FRA Matthew, now the pole sitter from last week's race, and of course eventually the race victor, which with a cracking performance actually, was the FRA driver at Bahrain. He will not be qualifying in this event because he is banned, and surely you'd like to go into the details of that particular arrangement.
Yeah, so as I think a lot of people saw in qualifying last week, Matthew extended the final corner. Whether it was on purpose or not, he extended the final corner in order to complete his lap, and the stewards deemed that to be exploitation, and he was willing or given the penalty that most people do get given in TPS when that happens, and he will be banned from qualifying from this event. And obviously, if anyone else, if we see any more of that today, any more exploitations, they'll expect the same penalty for round 3. So it's a bit of a warning shot to don't extend the track, and if you do, back out your lap because you will get penalised.
I mean, to be fair, all the drivers I'm sure will be ready and raring to go to make sure that they stay within those track limits, and I'm sure it'll be a big disappointment really for FRA as well. Of course, second in the standings, only 1 point behind Paradox in the standings at the moment, so this is a big blow to FRA in their hope to continue with their good performance. Now obviously Matthew, we're going to be having to race quite hard on a track that it really is not easy to race at, especially as it stands at the moment. Paradox have got a 1-2 at the moment with their pace. They're currently leading the way by 5 6/10 of a second, are the PSR team, so very, very good racing indeed from the Williams crew. And of course we'll keep an eye out as well on I think what was once described really as the dark horses of this competition as well, and not to discredit any other team, but St George Esports were really in the mix there to potentially get some solid races, and to be fair, not doing so bad at the moment in the standings as they continue their push. And of course, being St George as well, the recent death of Queen Elizabeth II, I'm sure they'll be racing twice as hard.
Yeah, for sure. And McCabe Sam has actually just started a hot lap as he goes through Sector 1. Looks pretty hooked up so far, and he's just going to come through the left-right fast section and just try and get as close to the wall as you can, get the power down, use all the track on the exit, and his first sector split is going to be a 32.5. Not exactly sure how that compares to the PSR boys in first and second, but from my POV, look pretty clean for a first sector as the Alpine gets out of the way. And now you just want to turn into this corner as early as you can. It's a blind right-hander, which he does very nicely. Make sure you don't spin on traction. And now you have a long straight, which is actually listed as 5 or 4 corners, but it's not really, is it? And now coming to the second sector split, you want to look for maybe a high 1, and that's close enough. It's a low 1.1. And another straight now. This track is filled with straights. It's actually the most corners of any track on the calendar, but the majority of it is flat out. And now we come to the final corner, braking at the black box on the right and getting the power down as early as possible. We saw Max Verstappen put it in the wall there, but the wall has been extended on this game, and he comes to the line. It's going to be a 28.2, and he goes P4, so a very respectable lap.
Very respectable lap indeed, actually splits the two VSR boys who have managed to rack up a second row position at the moment between Finn and Akos. But as it stands at the moment, it's Paradox Sim Racing now, absolutely flying high at the moment, but Finn just hot on their heels, a little bit over 1/10 of a second separating him, as we're just following Clone Troop as he comes around the final corner as well. It's the sole remaining St George Esports driver as he now heads in the Haas down towards the straight as he puts himself straight into P6. So again, St George Esports really flexing their muscles already.
Yeah, so we see 2 PSR cars, 2 VSR cars, and 2 St George Esports cars, all in the top 6. So at the moment, they're looking like the dominant force. We see VLX in 16th and 17th. I think they'll definitely be hoping for better than that. I know the testament of these drivers are, and they will be expecting at least Q2. So let's keep an eye on them for the rest of this session. Have we got anyone else on a lap? By the look of it, I don't think so. So in a bit of a lull at the moment, but PSR are looking very strong at the moment.
Tell you what, though, as it stands at the moment, Shazoo not flexing as muscles as strong as I thought they would at the moment. LCR Leopard still yet to set a representative lap time with that 1 minute 30.649. And as it stands at the moment, the other Shazoo driver, Piccolo, in 13th place, so at serious risk of not getting through Q2. With lap times like that one. So are they sandbagging at the moment is the question. And you were just mentioned as well, the top 6 separated.
Well, sorry to butt in, but Piccolo is widely renowned as a race merchant. He likes to call himself a race merchant. So qualifying has never been his strong point. He was actually in TPS qualifiers and just missed out for Shazoo. So he'll be looking for redemption here, and keep an eye on him in the race.
Interesting. Well, I appreciate the little bit of insight. I know Piccolo obviously is a very, very quick driver in racing. I've seen him racing when I'm commentating, actually, and he does have a lot of pace to flex. I'm looking forward to see what he can do wherever he qualifies. Nonetheless, you were just mentioning about the top 6, though. Currently, top 6 occupied by Paradox, VSR, and St. George. But in the top 9, as it stands at the moment, you've also got Roleplay 1 in there as well, through Teo and Montoya. So they're also just teasing them themselves into that battle between those in front 3. And also worth mentioning as well, of course, Rev Caterpillar, though a little bit of a pace difference between him at the moment and Amine in 14th at the moment. But Rev Caterpillar looking fairly strong as well in 8th.
Yeah, he is looking very strong, and RP1, as I said last week, they're widely seen as the underdogs of this tournament. I believe this is the only tournament that the team is competing in, so this is the platform to showcase all the talent they've got in their team. The only place you can see RP1 racing, and they're really flexing their muscles, as you said, as we're seeing a lot of cars up the top retiring, so they're pretty confident that they're going to go through with them times. But with 15 cars behind them, all raring to set laps, it's very risky retiring at this point.
Just keeping an eye out on RP1 Montoya at the moment in 9th place as he's heading around the circuit, and it looks like we've got a bit of an incident.
Yeah, so Stonks were just blocked, I think, by WR Book, and that might cost Stonks a place in Q2. I'm not sure if you caught that on stream, but Stonks was quite clearly blocked there. Book was sitting on the apex of the blind left, and that is going to ruin Stonks' lap. I think he's going to finish the lap anyway, but he was 5 tenths up, and he comes to the line now, and I don't think it's going to be as big of an improvement as he was hoping for, and it's only a 2/10 improvement. And I think we might have some already some stewarding inquiries, not even in Q2 yet.
Well, WR Buck in the Aston Martin, not flexing some, well, shall we say, some accurate performances when it comes to his qualifying and keeping in the way of other drivers. He will not be happy about that one, but he has to get on with his racing if he can. And Stonks at serious risk for FRA as well, considering Matthew is not qualifying as well. FRA are in actually some big trouble here, so keep an eye out on that one for sure, as Clone Troop up to 7th place, because RP1 Montoya, who I was on board with when that incident happened with Stonks, straight up to P4. He was showing some really good pace, was the Roleplay 1 driver, and I did mention keep an eye out on them because they are looking fairly sharp indeed. Let's have a look around the rest of the field at the moment. VLX, I've just had a bit of a spin out with VLX Jack. It looks like he's just ploughed it into the wall, and he just wants to stay out of the way of the drivers that are all coming here, including his teammate, as they're just heading around the very quick right left-hander. He looks like he did just clip the wall, and the Alfa Romeo definitely out of qualifying.
Yeah, Jack did just get a time on the board before that happened. He went into P10 with a 28.7, but if you look to the gap from 16th, which is the drop zone, he is very, very close to that gap, only 1.5 tenths ahead of the drop zone. And with these, all drivers behind him are on hot laps, and including his teammate Quantum, who is, I believe, 5 or 6 tenths up on his time. So you'd think this will be enough to go through to Q2. If you go on board with him now, he is coming to the line. McLaren gets out the way just about. I think that was Stonks, so I think Stonks might be out, because Quantum doesn't get into Q2. That's quite a shock, actually. So Quantum will not be going into Q2. Wow.
Well, keep an eye out on the Shizou, though, because Shizou have got Piccolo, who's at the risk of being dropped out here if Amine or Quantum can pick up the pace. We'll have to see. I'm keeping an eye on board at the moment with LCR Leopard. Now, he hasn't set a representative lap time, and he's just heading around the second sector. In the first sector, he was 6.5 tenths up, so certainly had a lot more pace to find, as WR Book is out of qualifying, and he finishes in P18, and he may have also cost Stonks a potential position in FRA if the words of Ollie have got anything to go by. I'm sure they absolutely do. Let's keep going around the final sector, though, for LCR Leopard, as he now heads down towards that final corner, of course, the infamous corner where we saw Max Verstappen in 2021 have that collision with the wall, and as you said earlier, it pointed out, it is now moved just a little bit over to the right to avoid that happening again, as the Mercedes will come across the line. He needs to try and go above if he can, and he certainly does, straight into P6, but Piccolo, at the unfortunate circumstance of knocking out his Shizou teammate Piccolo, as it stands at the moment, I believe he is on a hot lap, and he is 2 tenths up at the moment. Stonks definitely out of qualifying here, so that's both FRA drivers out of Q1, obviously one as a result of a penalty, the other one as a result of maybe some track blockage, if you will, from WOR Buck, obviously racing for team, I think it's Team Artemis, isn't it? As he now heads towards the line, will Piccolo get through? He certainly does with P13 on the board, but he's still at risk at the moment. Here comes Phoenix. He comes across the line for CRT, up to 9th, and then VLX Jack. Velox could be down and out here as it stands at the moment, and they are as it stands at the moment, with Bobberts snagging P15, and it looks to me as if Quantum is not coming in. Sorry, he is coming into the pits, and that is VLX, FRA, and one Artemis driver out of Q1.
Such heartbreak for Jack. He managed the whole session just sitting in Q2, and he's missed out by 1/1000th of a second. The margins are so fine. There's 28 corners, I believe, and it all comes down to 1 millisecond. So very good lap from Bob. It's just about sneaking in. And I think there's going to be a lot of drama because Stonks was definitely blocked, and it's caused him a place in Q2. So yes, I'm going to be keeping an eye out on the chat on Discord just to see what's going on, but tensions are going to be high.
Tensions are going to be high, I think definitely covers it, as we just keep an eye out then and have a look then at the end of Q1, and it is PSR Nick who is leading the way for the PSR Paradox Sim Racing team, alongside his teammate Scyther, who obviously showed some extreme pace down in Bahrain last week, so keep an eye out on him. Finn and Montoya 3rd and 4th. McCabe for St. George Esports, 5th place for him, with LCR Leopard manages to sneak himself right in to the middle of the pack with P6, with Artemis flying with Aston Martins in the Aston Martin, with 7th place for JTO 40. Akos in 8th, Phoenix in 9th, Clone Troop rounding out the top 10. Teo and Amin with are in 11th and 12th, with Caterpillar, Piccolo and Bobberts rounding out the top 15, and of course Jack out of qualifying alongside his teammate at Velox. Quantum in 18th, Book out of qualifying in 19th after controversially getting in the way of Stonks, who is also out of qualifying alongside his teammate for FRA, and FRA currently 2nd place and 1 point. 1 point just behind Paradox Sim Racing, and they're out in Q1 at a track that's not really good for overtaking. They're in serious trouble here.
Yeah, I think the strategy is going to be key for FRA to get back up there, because as you said, they are currently 2nd in the standings, and with the Cypher and PSR Nick look very strong, so you'd think they're going to be favourites maybe for a double podium, and so FRA are going to have to really think outside the box with strategy. Safety cars are very, very common around here, so that could always spice up the race. So strategy is definitely the deciding factor here, and as predicted, tensions are running high in the Discord general chat between Team Artemis and FRA. So yes, I'll keep an eye on that, but yeah, it's getting a bit heated.
Yeah, it's going to get a little bit heated, as just having a look in the Discord myself actually, and ooh, crikey, that's not looking pleasant. At least Rev Caterpillar is saying, come on, Rev Caterpillar, in the chat as well. So that gets a big dub from myself. Let's keep looking then at the rest of the field then, as we just monitor how we get ahead with Q2. Now, remember, of course, in Q2, you do not, if you get in the top 10 anyway, do not start on that tyre. That is obviously as a result of the rule change that happened in this season of racing in Formula 1. So that is now offering the opportunity for all drivers to really strategize fully what they want to do with their tyres. Now, we are expecting the soft tyre not to be potentially the choice of tyre in a 50% race around the track in Jeddah, but that could be something that people may want to do later on in the race, as we are a little bit over a minute and a half into the session and we're still waiting on the first driver to come out here, so people taking their time.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's a bit of a quiet start to the session, 1.5 minutes through, and none of the pit crews even moving. It's all quiet. It's absolutely silent. The fans, I can see, getting a bit excited. Is there a car coming out? Yes, there is. It is an Alpha Tauri, and I believe that is the RP1 driver of RP1 Montoya, and he is on a brand new set of softs. No, not feeling the need to use a used set from Q1, so expect a very quick lap right out the blocks on RP1 Montoya.
So obviously RP1 looking fairly sharp throughout this race as well. They're currently at the moment in P4 in the standings, just behind Visceral at the moment. So they are doing a cracking job early onset in this season rather, with Montoya and Teo obviously really sort of making a challenge actually to the likes of PSR and potentially VSR as well. So might be in for a close race actually between the RP1 and VSR drivers. So definitely worth monitoring that one if you are keen on that sort of front to midfield battle. We are fully expecting, let's be honest, that Paradox are going to be flexing some really strong muscle in this race, and if Bahrain has got anything to go by as well, they're very good in their chemistry as teammates as well, are Paradox, so they definitely work together, and this might come a benefit in this qualifying session, as we're still waiting on someone else to leave the pit lane at the moment. It is Montoya on his own, and we can only thank him for providing us this entertainment.
Yeah, I think RP1 are going to be happy that they're getting a lot of screen time, because by the looks of it, literally no one wants to budge. So everyone's quite happy to just sit there and watch Montoya plod around the track. I think maybe they're just waiting out for the track to maybe improve, but yeah, here we go with Montoya, and let you take us round a lap of Jeddah.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for putting the pressure on me there, because I don't really particularly like Jeddah, but let's give it a go, shall we, as we head down towards the straight. Now, of course, 27 corners around here, and it's going to be pretty intense that these drivers have to focus with every single corner, because the wall is just in close proximity. Keep it through turn 2, keep it and mount the curb if they can, and then keep as close to the wall as he possibly can as they now head through. And it looks like Montoya does have company in front of him as now head through turn 5, and it is that long right-hander, which with this generation of car, very easy to lose the rear. Excuse me, as the Red Bull keeps it clear through 7, 8 and 9, and he wants to try and keep it flat if he can through 10. Mount the curve, very well taken from Montoya as he heads now down towards that left-hander, of course, slightly banked as well, somewhat reminiscent maybe of a slightly weaker final corner around Zandvoort, as he now heads down the next set of straights. Now in this second sector, of course, it is mainly flat around here, apart from this corner, which you can easily mess up if you go as wide, and that is exactly what Montoya has done, as he now head towards the next set of corners. Of course, he is now on an invalid lap. This lap will not apply, but he will continue nonetheless, perhaps to just see what lap he would have set, as it would have been a 1:13 through that bit of corner. Very well taken through there, actually. Absolutely got it inch perfect. It's a shame, actually, because this has been a fairly solid lap from RP1 here, as now heads down towards that final corner. The infamous, again, Max Verstappen corner. He'll keep it nice and steady, close to the wall as he possibly can, and then keep it close to the wall here without touching it, and does exactly that one as well. So it's a shame about that final corner, because Montoya was on actually for a relatively good lap. It would have been a 1:28.9.
Yeah, not a bad lap there from Montoya. It's fine margins at this track. You run a tiny bit wide, you are going to be invalidated. The track limits at this track are very, very unforgiving. So yeah, unlucky from Montoya. I think he'll just pit, get a fresh set of boots on, and go out in the better track conditions. Someone who was on Montoya's lap, just getting out of the way, was ESV Bobberts for CRT, and he is coming through the first sector now. The very tricky, quick turns, and now he just got a tiny bit wide, but gets it hooked in, misses the apex slightly, and that's going to slow him down up this straight. Montoya did a 32.6 first sector. Bobberts does a 32.4, so a very good lap at the moment from Bobberts, and he's just got to keep it together. Now coming up to the corner where Montoya invalidated, he just turned in a bit too late. What does Bobberts do? Try and turn in as early as you can without clipping the wall, and he does it very nicely, actually. Get the power down on the curb, as that is Montoya getting out of the way there. And now it's just a long drive down to the next proper corner, which will be a blind left-hander, and you've just got to chuck the car in, have as much confidence as possible, which is Bobberts maybe a bit cautious as he runs a bit wide, and he's actually lost the rear, and that is Bobberts' lap over and done with.
I'll be honest with you as well, I think that lap would have probably been invalidated by you guys, and potentially a qualifying ban for the next race as well, because it did track extend quite extensively over that curb, and it did not invalidate it. But I think the amount of curb he actually took probably bottomed out the car, and that's what caused that little spin out, as we're still waiting on a driver to set and qualifying lap at the moment, and we'll keep an eye out on what other drivers are trying to set a lap. And well, actually, let's go to Rev Caterpillar at the moment as well, give him a little bit of screen time, if you will. Rev Caterpillar, revving Rev Caterpillar, if you will, as well, for Novus, as he's now just heading in the infamous corners, as Bobberts sets the initial lap time, of course, well off the pace after that spin out, and that will obviously be invalidated, I'm fairly certain, as well, by the stewards after that track extension at the corner where he spun, as we now follow Rev Caterpillar down the straight. Now this is the corner where Bobberts did commit to that spin, but much, much easier for Rev Caterpillar as he keeps it nice and tidy and as close to the wall as he possibly can without overstretching the limits of his Alpine as he now heads down towards that final corner. He's actually got his teammate as well, Amin, just going down the main straight, so he's going to get a little bit of a tow potentially as he now heads down the straights. Good work here from Novus if that is the case here, as Amin goes and gets a 29.0, Rev Caterpillar will get a 28.1.
Yeah, much better lap from Rev Caterpillar compared to his teammate Amin. Amin just clearly not hooking it up as well as his teammates, so MVR go 1 and 3. And we've only seen 3 competitive laps, and we're halfway through the session. We've got someone else on the lap there. We've got JT for AEM coming to the line. He does a 28.2, which is a very, very respectable lap. I believe JT making his debut in TPS. We've never seen him race for us. So nice to see new drivers, new talent in our tournament, and a very good lap from JT for Team Artemis.
Keep an eye out on Paradox then, as they finally get them drivers out on the case here, and Paradox absolutely flying at the moment in that first and second sector. Now Nick initially setting the good first sector, but actually it is Scyther at the moment who is flexing his muscles in the first sector, and in the second sector he's looking fairly sharp as well, as we now head down towards that final corner, and then of course through the final straight for Nick as he comes across the line with a 27.6. However, I'm expecting that this lap may potentially be beaten here by his teammate Cypher, who is looking very sharp indeed. It's a 1 minute 0.5 in the second sector, so a really, really good second sector, but actually no, a little bit down on Nick at the moment here, so this is going to be interesting to see how the PSR boys do here. Are they going to flip their positions as they come across the line? As it stands, no. Scyther will hold on and will be 4/10 down on Nick. Looks like a bit of a poor second sector actually versus Nick, but Scyther had a cracking first sector. He was 2/10 faster, so clearly time to find between the pair of them, and I've got no doubt they'll be working. But Rev Caterpillar, and not just Rev Caterpillar as well, we're going to put Artemis in the mix as well as VSR, who are just knocking on the door of Scyther's time.
Yeah, it's quite funny that you say Cypher had quite a bad lap and he's still P2, but Nick 5/10 in the lead. He has had an absolutely amazing lap, and by the looks of it, PSR look in a field of their own. We've got no FRA to compete. WR have dropped out, so PSR really in the driving seat this qualifying session, and by the looks of it, no one can touch them. I remember you mentioned last week VSR known for their consistency, and they've done a 28.144 and a 28.146. So once again, backing up your claim, very consistent lap times from the VSR boys.
It doesn't matter what drivers they field. The pair of drivers that VSR field always seem to be really close with each other, and it's 0.02 of a second separating the pair of them. It's absolutely astonishing how VSR work clearly in the background with their drivers. It's really, really almost awe-inspiring actually between the teams. A good effort indeed from them to hog 4th and 5th as it stands at the moment. Shazoo knocking on their door at the moment by 38,000ths of a second. We've got plenty of drivers still on a lap. St. George looking to try and get into Q3 if they can get both of them into Q3. So Clone Troop is on the brink, I'd say, at the moment when everyone finishes their laps here. It's all about what McCabe can do, though, as he comes around across that final corner in the Haas, as St. George will plough down the main straight in order to try and set the lap time. Will be able to get into the top 10. He does. He goes second and beats Cypher. And again, it was just that that second and final sector where Scyther lost a lot of time to Nick, and it's cost them, and now they are not in that 1-2 position as St. George really starting to flex their muscles. McCabe in second.
I think that might raise a few eyebrows, to be honest, because that's come out of absolutely nowhere, and McCabe Sam putting the St. George Esports Haas into second, only 1/10 off PSR Nick, which would be provisional pole if we were in Q3. So yeah, St. George is definitely an underdog this race, and one to keep out for, a dark horse I should say, because that is a very, very quick lap. Keep an eye on Clone Troop as well. If he can get in the mix as well, could be a big haul of points for St. George's. Maybe jump VSR by the end of this round. We'll see.
Ollie Loveland, you are a graphic designer. Here's a really solid question for you. Will St. George's performances ever reflect their logo design?
Unfortunately not, but yes. The logo design is not too bad. It's just very, very low quality.
Very low quality. It's been a bit
yes.
properly difficult to get into the animation software that I've got as well. So, you know what? Don't discredit the fact that they've got a poor quality logo, because my God, they are quick at the moment in second place at the moment. And Clone Troop also sneaking in as well to Q3 as it stands. But of course, we still have, I reckon, 4 respective lap times to come in, and maybe 5 as well. With Teo Montoya is 11.2 seconds down, so clearly not a good lap for him here, as he's just about to get going. RP1 really need to start flexing a little bit of time here, because RP1, Teo and Montoya were looking really sharp in Q1, but in Q2 they're struggling.
Yeah, so RP1 have 2 cars in the drop zone, as well as CRT. They have both their cars in the drop zone. So seeing a bit of a trend at the moment. We saw 2 full teams going out in Q1. As where is Dolly?
We will gloss.
Yeah, well,
we will gloss. So you know what? I'm not going to have to do something at the bottom to blank these names that come, because I'd love to know who the person is that's doing it, but they are golden at gamer tag. You were saying?
I was saying 2 full teams are currently going out in each qualifying session. Obviously, we saw VLX completely drop out of Q1. We saw FRA completely drop out, and at the moment we're seeing 2 full teams of CRT and RP1 drop out as well. As I say that though, Montoya is on an absolute belter of a lap. He's 1/10 off of the split of McCabe Sam. So you'd think this lap is going to put him near enough the front row, as he just avoids an AlphaTauri on the inside there of the blind left. And now we just got to try and get it slowed down for the final corner. Don't run too deep. Gets it pretty nicely hooked up. Maybe could have been a bit closer to the apex, but now coming to the line, opens the DRS, and what will it be for RP1 Montoya? It's a 27.9, and he is comfortably in the top 10.
It's good laps indeed coming in from the likes of Montoya. RP1 now beginning to sort of stretch out with the pace that they can actually do, as Teo will come across the line to start his lap here, and that is actually going to put Shazoo on the brink here, because Piccolo is currently out of qualifying as it stands. We do know, as you rightfully point out earlier, as Amin has come across the line in P3. What a lap for the driver in the Alpine. Really good lap time indeed, but that is now putting some serious pressure on the likes of Artemis and Shazoo here. VSR, who would have thought it? They may also be questioning, is our pace good enough at the moment as it stands? We'll have to see. Either way, the Alpine getting out of the way for Akos, the Hungarian hero, looking to try and improve his lap here, and he is really beginning to push here. So and you can see there a big tank slapper, well caught actually, from Akos. So now we head through the first sector, and that's invalidated, and VSR are at a serious risk here of being knocked out if Shazoo can keep improving and Artemis can keep improving as well.
Yeah, Akos's car looked a bit unstable there. I think you're also on board with him on the stream. Just had to catch that very, very aggressive snap, which he did, in all fairness to him, but that kind of ruined his run through the next right-hander, and he went wide. Unfortunately lost that lap time, and he won't be able to set another one. So Akos very, very much in danger. But someone who is not in danger is Finn, because he is 3/10 up through the middle sector. So this is comfortably going to put him through into the top 10. Where will it put him though? Comes to the line to 27.7, 1 millisecond off of McCabe Sam into P3, and you'd think that's going to be enough to get him through.
Well, quite indeed here as we follow Clone Troop around that corner with the 28.1, might be able to sneak in. As it stands, Akos is on the brink and he is at serious risk. Now, Leopard is only up 2 thousandths of a second in the first sector, so he can't find any more pace in that first sector. The question is can he find any more in the second? We'll have to see. Shazoo driver then is heading through across the second sector lap time now, and he is a 10.5 up at the moment as it stands here. So VSR, serious risk of one driver being knocked out here with that invalidation, and that's so important, isn't it, to stay within the track limits. As a result, Akos retires, and he is definitely out of qualifying, as it looks like Teo has come across the line, I believe. Oh no, sorry, it was AEM, I believe, who came across the line with JT. He's managed to sneak in into the top 7, as Leopard is going to come across the line now for Shazoo, and as it stands, Shazoo are both going to lose their drivers. Piccolo is out, but Leopard is in, as Clone Troop is now at the risk at the moment, depending on how Bobberts does, and he is down the order, and he will not go any faster than a 128.4. So we've lost both CRT drivers, we've lost one Shazoo, one VSR, and we've lost Rev Caterpillar in the Alpine as well. Very, very mixed bag. Yeah,
I mentioned that Jack missed out on Q2 by 1/1000th of a second. Well, Rev Caterpillar's just missed out on Q3 by 3/1000th of a second. So the margins are so fine on getting through and getting knocked out. And Rev will be pretty disappointed that he didn't put in just a few more I mean, 3 milliseconds is what? Turning in a tiny bit earlier, maybe getting the traction down a millimetre earlier. And that's unfortunately knocked him out. But we see both St George's cars into Q3, which is great for them. Both RP1 cars really flexing their muscles in 6th and 7th, so the French fans will be happy. And PSR still looking dominant. Nick, bear in mind, only with one run at that session, and he's 1/10 clear. So, yeah.
Well, Nick looking very strong for PSR, then followed by Sam, and then Finn, Scyther, Amin, Montoya, Teo, Leopard, JT, and then Clone Troop. Those knocked out with Caterpillar, Akos, Piccolo, Bobbits, and Phoenix. And remember as well, that is the second session in a row that all of the drivers have been separated by just under 1 second. So incredibly close qualifying, and these drivers will continue on into Q3, which I'm fairly certain will be a continual close race indeed. So let's have a look and see how those drivers are going to do heading into Q3. Now, remember, of course, those who manage to get into the top 10 will not be starting on that tyre that they qualified on after that rule change. So I'm looking forward to seeing what strategy they pick around here. And whilst I'm sure we're going to have a few minutes of waiting before we get going, it might give us an opportunity to have a look and see what's happening in the chat at the moment. And it is absolutely messy out there at the moment as well. We've got people just having a quick chat as well with Matt Torley saying it's the NVR meme teamers at the moment as well. So very intriguing indeed to see what people are saying. Roleplayer 1 as well are in the chat as well, and they are very happy at the moment with their performance. I imagine both of their drivers into Q3, so good race and good qualifying so far, as we do have drivers immediately leaving, and it looks like it's going to be one of the Williams. That'll be PSR, and I believe that is going to be PSR Nick.
Yep, so just wanting to get out there early. Obviously, Nick only did one run in that last session, so he wants to get a feel for the track condition. Hasn't run too much this qualifying session, as he doesn't actually have to, if I'm completely honest. He's got the pace, so why waste the sets of tyres that you might need in the race when get, I'm going to say, a guaranteed safety car surely at one point. So yeah, Nick's going to have a few tyres in reserve, and he will have an advantage if the situation does arise. But yeah, at least we've got some people to watch at the start of this session, and one of them also being Montoya, who loves going out early.
Montoya obviously wanted to set the early laps. He didn't manage to successfully do that in Q2, so obviously just wants to get a feel for the track, and it seems to work so far anyway for RP1, as both of their drivers are in, as are the PSR drivers, as well as the Alpines as well. And I keep forgetting Alpine is Novus, isn't it? So I will
Novus,
remember
yes,
eventually what these teams are represented by. But a very good job from St George as well. I've got both drivers in, but shocker qualifying 3. They've lost Akos of VSR, and Finn is out on his own.
Yes, so VSR fighting with one arm tied behind their back, and Finn, you'd have to say, is probably in the battle for the front row, maybe second row at worst. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be 2 PSR cars versus 1 VSR car, if that does come down to it. I'm going to throw a question to you.
Yeah,
James. Who's getting pole?
It's going to have to be one of the PSR drivers as it stands at the moment, because they are really are showing some real pace, and I believe it's the guy we're on board with at the moment, PSR Nick. He's been absolutely flying in Q1 and Q2, but very hesitant on the throttle going out of the final corner to get his lap going. So is he being a little bit more on the conservative side this particular lap? I'm not so sure. He's very close to the track limits.
Yeah, he's throwing the car in every corner, so if that's conservative, I'd love to see him pushing, because he's absolutely nailed sector 1, and his split is a 31.8. And just for comparison, some of the guys in Q2 were doing 32.4s. So Nick is absolutely flying as he gets the... No, he just uses every single millimetre of track right up against the wall. And now, how early does he throw it into the right? Oh, just look at it. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And he's going to get a tow from his teammate. This is the chemistry you were talking about. PSR have such great chemistry with their teammates, and he's opened the DRS and going to get a massive tow. And what is the split going to be? It's a 1.0. This is going to be an absolutely mega... This might be the pole lap right here. So good that we've seen it on board, because he's absolutely nailed pretty much every corner. He's got a tow. This is the perfect lap. Max Verstappen levels of before he crashed. Let's hope Nick doesn't have the same fate that Max Verstappen did. Nope. Gets it very nicely planted. Comes to the line, opens the DRS. And I think this might be the lap of the day.
It might be 27.3. There's your initial lap time to start off with. It was a cracking second sector as well, 31.8 in the end, which allowed him to get that 60-second two-sector lap as it stood at that particular time. So really, really good lap from PSR Nick. Now he'll be hoping to help out his teammate Cypher as he's now just starting his lap. And again, really, really well executed from the PSR guys to get the team working, and not so easier on the throttle, you'd have to say, for Cypher. He's a little bit hesitant going into these corners, but again, the Williams just looks somewhat planted actually as he now heads through that. Oh, amazing, as he comes across into the first sector now, and he is a little bit down, 31.8 on Nick. So Nick's showing some real pace. RP1 Montoya with a 27.8, Leopard with a 28.9. I'm sure they've got a bit more time to find, has the Shazoo driver, as they now head down the, I'd have to say, the straight not straights after this set of corners here. And is he going to get a tow from Nick? And I tell you what, that was not very well executed.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch that. I'm just on board with JT, but yeah, I assume the tow just didn't go as planned, so Cypher not going to get the perfect lap. And did you manage to check his middle split? Because I went on board a bit late.
His middle split is actually matching that with Nick at the moment with a 31.8, despite the fact he didn't get the tow. So cracking second sector, but unfortunately Nick just did not set off early enough to help Cypher out in that perhaps struggle in the first sector. So I'm expecting Cypher surely will be coming across the line maybe with a 27.6, 27.7. Make that a 27.3. What a fantastic third sector. He's actually beaten Nick by 2/10 in that third sector to rescue that lap. Despite the poor first sector, Cypher is knocking on the door of Nick at the moment, and Paradox again showing their really good team effort nonetheless, after even with that mistake, 27.3 each.
Yeah, that is incredible. All them, well, Cypher not getting the tow, then 2/10 quicker than Nick. I mean, the last sector is, what, 2 corners? And he's found 2/10, which is quite incredible. And it does look like the PSR show out there, because they're on board with McCabe Sam, who was P2 in Q2, and he's 5/10 down come the middle split. So it really does look like PSR are in a field of their own. But we do have the St George's esports cars coming to the line. I think Clone Troop will be the first across the line as he opens the DRS, and probably going to be a low 28 by the looks of it. Or prove me wrong, it's a high 27, so really good lap from Clone Troop. And Sam goes into P3 with a 27.7, so 3rd and 5th for St George's, and that'll boost them right up the order if they can finish there at the end of the race.
I'm fairly certain there's a bit more pace actually in Montoya's car than the 27.8 that he's set. I mean, all due respect, it's a quick lap time, but I think he's got a bit more pace in him, has the RP1 driver. Amina yet to set a lap, as well as Teo for RP1 and Novus respectively. Let's keep an eye out as well on the rest of the field as they're all now coming in. St George's obviously are on now slow laps. Cypher is also on a slow lap for PSR. So PSR will just be having a very quick conversation about Nick and Cypher's execution, shall we say, of the tow on that particular occasion. I'll be asking them to try again and be a little bit better on that one. But they have got a very high quality management and a very high quality set of drivers, and I'm sure they'll just laugh at the little mistake, and I'm sure it won't happen again.
Yeah, I believe Leopard was on old used softs, because I don't think he as a driver, I don't think he's 1.7 seconds off the pace. So I think Leopard will be my one to watch for this last run, because he is one of the most talented drivers on the platform. Just doesn't really get involved in the social media side, just kind of always the quiet guy who just races, and he's definitely going to be one to watch in this last run. But we have a bit of a lull at the moment. We got the St George's cars on track, but I believe they are coming into the pits. So, yeah, let's find something to talk about while we wait 2 minutes for cars to come out on track.
I'll tell you what, let's have a little chat then about the season ahead, because we've got a really, really good season of racing ahead of us. Obviously, after Jeddah, we head over to the United Kingdom for Great Britain, and then obviously for Silverstone, and then we've got France and then Belgium to round out the first 5 races, as we see a Williams driver leaving immediately out of the pits. It looks to me it is the number 62, that'll be Cypher, leaving the pit lane early ahead. No, apologies, it's Nick that's leaving the pits. But yeah, we've got a season ahead here. Now, every driver will have their favourite tracks. Every drivers will have their not-so-favourite tracks. Clearly, St George, I mean, not to dispute their pace. They've got an amazing pace, but this is almost unprecedented from the team at the moment. They clearly really like Jeddah, but that might be different when we look later down the line.
Yeah, as you said, every team has their favourite track, and it's clear that PSR and even RP1 really suiting this track because they are, I believe, fourth and fifth in the standings, respectively. Obviously, we do have the absence of FRA in Q3, but they are really up there, giving a bit of a challenge to PSR, so that's good to see. But yeah, Britain is a much different track to Jeddah. You don't have these walls right beside you. You have that margin of error. You can run wide if you make a mistake. Let's say it cops, you can back out your lap. But if you make that same mistake here, you are going head first into the wall. So very different tracks, and I believe Nick has gone out early to give Cypher a tow, or like the other way around. Sorry, Cypher will give him a tow. So let's keep an eye on with Nick, because I feel like this lap could be something special if he hooks it up.
Also worth mentioning as well about the situation with Amine and Teo. Yeah, of course, they need to set their lap. So Amine has left the pits, as we've just got PSR Nick very slow indeed, as now he goes around that final corner, keep his tyres warm. He's going to take it very wide, as he now will want to come around across that final corner and get going with his lap. And it is indeed going to be an important lap, you'd have to say, for PSR Nick, because of course him and his teammate very close proximity for qualifying on pole position here, and he'll need to find a little bit of time potentially in the third sector as it stands, maybe even the second sector actually, because of course he had the tow from Scyther on his lap. He didn't manage to give a tow to Scyther backwards, but Scyther matched him. So going to be interested to see how that one turns out, and he's really throwing this car in and around that first sector. Absolutely intense indeed as they head through these set of corners, and he's keeping it really high revved in fifth gear to try and manage his speed. And you know what? Very well taken. First sector, 31.8. He's down, but only just.
It's quite mesmerising watching him go through sector one. Just literally, you could put a sheet of paper in between his front right and the walls. It's absolutely incredible, and I think we see another example of that here. Look how close he gets, and that looked much better than his last lap. And Cypher once again, he's really getting good at these tows, because he's going to give Nick a tow all the way down to this blind left. So really well done from Cypher as he throws it in. Maybe misses the apex slightly. That's going to ruin his run up the straight just a bit. But so far looks like a good lap from Nick. I didn't quite see if he was up in the middle. I've just looked on the stream. He was up. So this could be a 0.2 for Nick. He's going to have a car in the way. Is that going to put him off? It definitely did. He turned in a lot earlier than last lap. But he is going to get a nice tow from the RP1 driver. So he might gain even more time coming up to the line. What's it going to be for Nick? It's a 27.295 and provisional pole position.
It is indeed a 27.295, but it is probably not as much as I think he could have got. So going to be interesting to see how he does. Now RP1 are also in the mix to try and get this, as well as Sam McCabe, who's just about to start his lap. Cypher looking to try and at least get a bit of a toe off of Nick this time around. We'll have to see. Oh, very well taken. Turn 4 there from the American as he now heads through here. He's going to potentially go a little bit off track here, I think, because, and there it is, yeah, because he did indeed go a little bit wide through that corner, and he just carried that all the way through those corners, and that will be his qualifying over. So he's hoping here that the gap that he set in the first lap is going to just be enough against the likes of St. George and RP1.
Yeah, RP1 Theo actually clipped the inside wall at turn 4, so he won't be improving on his time, which he actually hasn't put a time. So no time for Theo this this session, as Amin comes to the line and does a 27.7 on the second row, 1,000th ahead of McCabe Sam, as we see RP1 Montoya, who's 2 tenths up on his time. So at the moment he's on for a provisional P3 if he can hook up the end of this lap. I think he may have got a tow from his teammate Teo. But yeah, just got to nail this final corner. Has a much earlier turn in than the likes of PSR Nick. So we're seeing lots of different lines here. But coming to the line, RP1 Montoya is going to do a 27.601. Absolutely brilliant, Matt.
Well, just keeping an eye on Sam McCabe. He was exactly 1/10 up in the first sector. He was nearly 4/10 up in the second, but he had a big tank slap that I well caught here. So I'm wondering if he's going to be a little bit down on this lap here. He'll want to try and at least get the 1,000ths on Amine to get fourth. Can he get third is going to be the question, as he comes across the line now, and he does get third by just a little bit under 700ths of a second. Good lap indeed, as Finn comes across the line for VSR into 5th place. LCR Leopard comes across the line, and Shazoo will take P3. He might have been rightfully called out there from LCR Leopard to say that he might have been on the used soft tyre. He's gone straight onto the new soft, and he's put it on the second row.
Yeah, isn't that brilliant? So in the top 7 we've got 6 teams, so that is absolutely incredible. That's exactly what you want to see in a team tournament. 6 different teams all battling it out. We've got FRA at the back as well, so they're going to be charging through. And if you want to read us through that grid, that is a tasty looking top 10.
Certainly, indeed, looking like a tasty 1 to 10 here. We'll keep an eye out on how the drivers are going to do heading into this one then. So it is a front row lockout for PSR with that the two drivers separated by 77 thousandths of a second. They'll be happy with that one. LCR Leopard, Shazoo on their debut here tonight, snagging a second row slot alongside St. George Esports with Sam McCabe. Alpha Tauri for RP1, Montoya in 5th place. No lap time set for Teo though, he's down in 10th. With VSR, the sole VSR driver in 6th place, with HSR Amine in 7th for Novus, with Artemis, yes, AEM JTO40 in 8th place, with Clone Troop in 9th. I'll get there in the end.
It's still only round 2. You got 12 rounds left to get the names right.
12, I'll get to round 12. I'll get through the 12 rounds and I'll still make mistakes. Well, you know me, it's going to happen. Right, so we're into the race then here in Saudi Arabia. Of course, we're going to be very briefly discussing what was a very intense race. But, of course, let's have a very, very enjoyable little break to just explore what has happened in qualifying. All of the drivers separated by under a second from first down to 20th. This is going to be an intense race. Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. If you're just tuning in, this is TPS. Welcome aboard to Season 2. This is round number 2 here in Saudi Arabia and the Jeddah Corniche circuit. Xbox One and Series, of course, League. As all the drivers are getting themselves prepared, we are going to be racing around here. 27 corners and 3.836 miles of racing here, with the 3 DRS zones that we're expecting to be seriously intense for some racing, as around those 27 corners there is going to probably be multiple incidents that we are expecting between all of the drivers, who are all separated by 1 second between all of them here. So PSR are atop of the standings at the moment, and they're fielding Scyther and PSR Nick. They are on the front row as well in this race. Matthew and Logic for FRA, second place, but down and out of Q1 for the team, with VSR, Akos and Finn third in the standings, and only 1 driver managing to get through to Q3, with RP1 Teo and Montoya both getting through to Q3. 13 points at the moment for them at the moment, and some big points eventually available for them, as well as these guys, St. George Esports, Sam McCabe and Clone Troop leading the way for them. Team Artemis flying high at the moment, AEM JTO 14 WR Book leading the way for that team, with HSR Amin and Rev Caterpillar leaving the way for Novus. 0 points for Velox as it stands at the moment, and not a good qualifying for them. Hopefully they can bounce back. And of course Continental also struggling as well, out of the points tally as it stands at the moment. And a big welcome of course to Team Shazoo, who join in the absence of WOR Esports with Leopard and Piccolo. It's also an opportunity as well to say our best wishes, of course, to the royal family, as Queen Elizabeth II recently announced the death of Her Majesty the Queen, 1926 to 2022. What a reign indeed from Queen Elizabeth II. So let's go through to the race then, and indeed it is going to be a very, very interesting race indeed. I'm certainly looking forward to being alongside you for this one then, Ollie. What have we got ahead of us here? Because we're going to have a very, very close race between a bunch of drivers all within a second of each other around a track that some may have not raced around for the first time in a while.
The team to watch is going to be FRA from the back of the grid. And so, an interesting bit of news for you. I'm not sure the legitimacy of it, but a little birdie has told me that Stonks has been removed from the team after that blocking incident. So, yeah, not sure if that's true. I'm not going to say it's true. I'm just reading what I've read. But if we do not see Stonks on this grid for the race, I think we know why. But, yeah, quite an interesting little dynamic that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out and obviously bring you any latest news that may end up happening. But, of course, it is indeed going to be an interesting scenario if that is the case. Well, of course, we're going to be heading through to the grid very shortly, and those drivers are going to be ready and raring to go, as we will be for this race here in Jeddah. And with those drivers lined up, we're going to be counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, and
It's
it's
the
a formation lap. I've been under the impression that we had no formation lap. Is that a new thing? I wish someone had told me that ahead of time.
We did have one last week. Your
Did we?
memory's been chocked. Yes.
I am absolutely dumbfounded, to put it bluntly. But there we go. We have a formation lap. That gives me a bit more time to breathe as we can look forward to this race. 25 laps ahead of us here then, Ollie. What have we got ahead of us is the question here, as we have apparently got Stonks. We're keeping an eye on him at the moment, and he is, as it stands at the moment, he is ghosted. So he isn't here.
Yeah, unfortunate. I don't actually know really what happened, but yeah, we'll just brush over that. No need to focus on it anymore. Let's look at the tyre situation. FRA have opted for medium tyres, and they are the only car on the whole grid to go for the medium tyres because everyone else is on the hards. So strategy maybe not going to be as important as predicted because it's looking like everyone is on the same strategy. So it's all going to have to be one on track tonight.
So we have what seems to be a very short race, 25 laps, but of course remember this is a very, very long circuit. So no surprises that we've got the 25 laps ahead of us here. Now, as it stands, you rightfully point out, everyone on the hard tyres except Stonks and Matthew, FRA electing to use just the medium tyre on their own, as we will obviously keep an eye out and see what is happening as regards of FRA. Matthew will start at the back, though, on the medium tyre. He's obviously hoping to do the inverse strategy, likely to Hood is to be a medium hard, not too long before we get racing here. So very quickly then, Ollie, expected strategy is going to be the hard medium. But medium hard a potential possibility, maybe even a hard soft.
Yeah, I can see a few of the guys towards the back of the grid maybe trying something different as Nick lining his car up very aggressively to the left. So he's going to be trying to cover off his teammate. And the PSR cars have got to the grid much earlier than everyone else. So they're going to be there for a while. But yeah, as I was saying, maybe don't be surprised if you see maybe the VLX guys go for the hard soft and gamble on a safety car coming out late. And then if that does happen, they're going to get a huge advantage from tyres at the end and obviously make technically a free pit stop. So, yeah, I think it'll be hard medium, but definitely options elsewhere.
So, Clone Troop disqualified as he's not lined his car legally on the grid. Of course, remember, these drivers have got full reign to put the car wherever they want on the grid spot, as long as they don't go over the line, as it looks like Matthew is expertly placed. Stonks' ghost car just lining up, where we're going to get going for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And with those drivers lined up, we're counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. 5 lights, and they are a go. The drivers, here they are. PSR Nick trying to get a good start down that inside line. Then as Scyther is going to be potentially putting a bit of a challenge on, but he's actually trying to defend here from the Shizou driver of LCR Leopard. And they collided going into turn 2. And it looks very, very precarious between the pair of them. And immediately out of the blocks, Shizou are flexing their muscles and saying, we're going to put a challenge on you, is what they're saying to Paradox. So Paradox lead the way from Shizou and from St. George getting onto the podium as it stands with VSR Finn in 4th place. RB1 Montoya down in 5th as well, as we've got a spinning car, and it looks like we've lost an Artemis driver already in WR Buck.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of front wing damage at the back. I'm seeing end plates flying all over my screen. Looks like Phoenix has got half a front wing, Piccolo's gone for a spin, Book's gone for a spin, and Bobbitt's also having quite a poor start, so lots of carnage at the back. But yeah, Nick has already broke DRS after that collision between Leopard and Cypher, which I think will definitely go to the steward's room, but maybe it was a lap 1 incident.
Oh, crikey, there was a bit of a collision there between HSR Amin and Scyther, and it looks to me the other Artemis driver of JTO 14. Now, Scyther was trying to race his hardest between all of those drivers, tried to keep out of the way, and unfortunately has lost a load of positions in doing so. So now he's down to 10th place, as Clone True Backhorse and Rev Caterpillar have gained those positions respectively, and a really good start as well for those positions gaining. FRA Matthew already up 9 positions, VSR Akos up 4, Rev Caterpillar also up 4. Really good racing so far from the Novus team, as they're up 6th and 7th respectively, as Montoya also in the mix as VSR Akos puts it into the back of another car, and he gets into the collision with another driver, and bless him, I think it might have been Scyther again getting into a collision. He stays in 10th place, but Akos, the Hungarian hero, not the hero so far. He was out of qualifying early on, and now he's down to 15th.
I can't keep up. I'm watching one thing and I hear you scream at another. It's absolutely crazy. Matthew and Cypher battling for the win last week, started 2nd and 20th respectfully, and now they're side by side on track. So Matthew has made up 11 places by lap 2. He's already getting points. something has come wrong. I don't know what has happened on that first lap, but that is Jeddah for you. That is prime Jeddah. So much carnage. And Matthew on an absolute charge. Yeah, absolutely crazy. And Rev also from P11 to P7. So MVR, double points at the moment. I believe they are pointless this season, or maybe they're on 2 points. Can't quite remember. But yeah, good points at the moment for MVR.
Yeah, Nova's got a couple of points on the board at the moment here. The only couple of drivers yet to set points on the board, I believe, at the moment are CRT and Velox at the moment. Velox just out the points in 11th and 12th respectively, and CRT to Phoenix down in 20th at the moment, but the other Red Bull down in 13th racing with Bobbert. So really close racing happening here as FRA Matthew still trying to make some inroads here on Clone Troop at the moment for St. George Esports. 11 positions gain. He wants to try and get the 12th. He's got the DRS available at the end of the next lap, but he's using his ERS to try and get as close as he possibly can, and he is going to go for the dive down that inside line, and there's a slight collision here as Scyther, oh bless him, he's backed into the back of Matthew again. As Scyther, as he's just managed to hold off from potentially getting into a massive collision with the FRA driver. He's still in 10th place, and you know what? Everything that could be going wrong for Scyther at the moment could be going wrong, bar a spin out. I believe he's just managed to avoid getting damage as well, so he is still in the mix, but crikey, he's getting close.
Yeah, a bit of a half-hearted lunge by Matthew into the final corner, and Cypher just had to react because Matthew had to back off with Clone Troop closing the door completely. Crucially though, Clone Troop's actually lost DRS, or he's just around the mark. Oh, hold on. Matthew's going to go for the move here before DRS even activated, or near the zone. And Matthew going to make an easy pass around the outside. Clone Troop quite happy to just follow him through. He is on the medium tyres, so if he can stick with Matthew, that would be very beneficial. But keep an eye on Cypher because he is looking very hungry after this unfortunate first stint of the race.
Very angry as well, is what I'd suggest he is at the moment. Obviously, Clone Troop botting him out on the curb, which caused that little tank slapper that he caught very well indeed, to be fair to him. But Scyther with the DRS also makes the move, but look at that ERS level. He's well down and below 10% at the moment is the PSR driver, so he is pushing really hard at the moment. But FRA Matthew and Clone Troop and VLX, I'm not sure what's happening there. There seems to be a ghosting situation between Quantum and Clone Troop, and it looked like there was going to be a massive collision, but the game effectively said that's not going to happen, and Quantum now in the points for Velox, which is a well-earned point if they can hold on to it. But of course there's 21 laps to go as it stands here, and Matthew then also trying to close down the gap and trying to make some points up. Remember, he is on that medium tyre. He will be pitting earlier than everyone else as it stands at the moment, and as it stands as well, he's the only FRA driver on the field as Stonks is still not back in the lobby, and I believe that will be his race over and done with. Rev Caterpillar in 7th and HSR Amin in 6th place for Novus. I have a gut feeling that with Novus's points tally at the moment at 2, they're not really going to fight Matthew too hard.
Yeah, I think they'll just be happy to get some points on the board and jump VLX and AM, who I would say are their main rivals. Speaking of VLX, they've actually made a really good start to this race. They're in 10th and 12th, and Jack is going to go for the move up the inside. Can he get past Clone Troop? It's going to be close, and it is a great move through the long left-hander. So Jack into P11, and VLX on the charge. Both got knocked out in Q1. Maybe people wrote them off, but they're trying to put that to bed and coming back through the field very nicely.
So situation report at the moment as well for those towards the back. If you are keen eye on those in the midfield and towards the back, Artemis currently struggling at the moment down in 16th and 18th at the moment. WR Buck is actually out of the lobby. It looks like he's disconnected and he's hoping to get back in there and actually have a go. So fingers crossed we will get him back in the lobby very shortly so we can race alongside JTO40 and the Shizu Piccolo at the moment, who the race merchant, if you will, struggling at the moment down in P17 as we've got Clone Troop still trying to put efforts here on the Velox driver of Jack, who is struggling with his ERS management at the moment as he's harvesting energy left, right and centre, I suspect, as he is down well below 20% as it stands at the moment. But Clone Troop not able to get closer and closer he will get, and of course with that ERS available to him, he's going to go for it down the inside line, and Clone Troop back into 11th.
Yeah, Akos has just pit, and I think he's got front wing damage. I'm not entirely sure what that's from, but Akos not having the day that VSR were looking for, as we see our first time penalty on lap 5. So Quantum, I believe, is a pad driver, so the accuracy you need on pad around this track is absolutely unbelievable. So unfortunate for him, but he's keeping in the DRS of Cypher. Although Cypher has no ERS to play with, Matthew absolutely dropped him speaking of Matthew, he's looking to make a charge on the MVR drivers right up, and Rev Caterpillar needs to be very careful because he's pushing him through these corners. And keep an eye on this because he might make a move down this straight. He's going to burn, switch to the right, Rev defend to the left, but he's not. He doesn't want to fight it. Quite happy to finish in P8, get some good points on the board for the team. But Matthew, he does not want to settle for these positions, and he's going to fight through all the way to the front.
Looks like there's been a collision alongside Scyther and Clone Troop earlier on in this race, and Clone Troop's actually got damage, which is the reason why the St. George Esports driver is struggling out there, as is VLX Jack. He's now spun the car as he now tries to get himself back up and running. He's now down in P16 as Buck finally rejoins into the session as he can race for Team Artemis. Keep an eye out then on that race with the likes of Scyther as he's trying to pull down the gap after he had that collision early on with LCR Leopard, which I'm so sure Shazoo will have to try and defend in the shall we say, virtual courtroom in TPS after the incident that involved him and Scyther at lap number 1 at turn number 2 between all of those drivers, as we have a little bit of a DRS train falling now from P4 down to P8 at the moment, as Rev Caterpillar looking to just try and hold on to FRA Matthew, and FRA Matthew trying to make some inroads if he can on a mean, the other Novus driver, up in P6.
Yeah, the madness of the opening stint has calmed down a bit, and DRS trains, as we know of modern F1, have formed. But once again, second lap in a row, I think Matthew is going to overtake an MV driver because Amin is flashing his light, which means he's out of VRS completely. So Matthew definitely going to pounce on that opportunity, and he set up the move perfectly right up the backside of Amin, and it's going to be a very simple pass. Amin isn't going to fight it, and once again, Matthew at the same place overtakes a Novus driver into P6. 14 positions gained in just 6 laps. He could still get a podium.
He's still in this race as Amin has made a mistake, and he's going to lose all of that time now to FRA Matthew, as Rev Caterpillar is actually going to make the move on Amin as well. So now back up to 7th place for Rev Caterpillar. Matthew is now going to close down the gap to Montoya if he can, but he needs to really start considering his ERS management strategy here, because he's now down to around about 17% according to my screen at the moment, and he's got plenty of fuel available at his disposal. In fact, no, pardon me, sorry, he's down nearly 5 laps in fuel, so he has been pushing very hard, has FRA Matthew, but clearly he's not just on an ERS management, he's also on a fuel management strategy as well, despite the pace. So you're going to have to keep an eye out on FRA Matthew. He's got the pace, but I'm expecting that pace to drop off a little bit, especially when it comes to the second round of pit stops.
I think he must have, if he is down 5 laps on fuel, you'd have to think they're gambling on a safety car or two, which I'm actually quite surprised we haven't seen at this point of the race. I thought there was about 4 crashes on lap 1, and we haven't seen a VSE or a safety car. So if they are down on fuel, they're going to be absolutely praying that there's a safety car, because to get to the end with minus 5 laps of fuel, I have to say it's quite impossible. So they're going to need a bit of a miracle if that is the case.
Tyre health strategy, as well as it stands for FRA Matthew, excuse me, is currently used up about 35% of his tyres at the moment, so he's down to around about 65% on his health, 35% wear for Matthew as well, so he's definitely still got a little bit of life left in these medium tyres, but I suspect probably only around about 3 or 4 laps. But he is going to keep making motion, and he has made a move on Montoya, so now he's through up to P5 is FRA Matthew. Next victim for him will be VSR Finn, but he has now got to seriously consider what's his strategy as a result of tyres, fuel and DRS, because he's down on almost all of them.
Yeah, I don't know if you pointed this out, but Clone Troop did actually get damage. I think I remember Cypher putting him in a wall just slightly. Wasn't sure if Clone Troop got damage from earlier on, but just confirmed in the chat that he did. So not what St. George's were looking for, but Matthew up into P4 past Finn, and now the next car just up the road is a podium position. So quite incredible from Matthew, I must say. Very good drive from the driver who is not actually been no assists for too long, so quite impressive, and let's see if he can make it up into the podium places. But by the looks of it, he's going to.
Yeah, he's pushing. Akos with the fastest lap of the race so far on that medium tyre, 1:31.256 for the Hungarian hero down in P19 at the moment, as he's trying to chase down some races alongside Teo at the moment, who himself is trying to chase down Dubois Buck down in P17. The McLaren is still flying high, but the ERS management strategy now having to come into force. His tyres are starting to wear pretty thin now, down to around about 40% on his wear at the moment. So just keep an eye on Sam McCabe. His tyre wear looking fairly strong at the moment, down to around about 30% on his wear. So about 10% difference between the hards and the mediums at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think it will. Well, we're going to have still quite a few laps till we see anyone pit. I would say the optimal pit window probably around lap 15 for the mediums. It'll be interesting to see if anyone stretches it to the softs. I think we'll definitely see a few as Montoya gets past Finn, because Finn lost DRS to Matthew, so it's an easy pass for Montoya, who reclaims his 5th place. Is Finn going to give it up though, because he's going to have DRS now? But, oh, pardon me, doesn't want to burn. So yeah, just going to settle in for P6, but not the greatest day out for VSR. Unfortunate for ACOS and Finn losing that position to RP1 Montoya.
I can't help but feel Matthew's actually going on to a 2-stop here, because he is really, really pushing at the moment now. He's down to nearly half of his tyre wear already here in 9 laps. And of course, he wants to try and take this to around about lap 15 if he wants to really, really stretch out the stint. And I'm assuming that he's going to take the gamble and he's going to do medium soft, but that would be one bold call if he's pushing so hard. The issue is that it's not just the situation as regards of his tyres. As I said, he's down on fuel. He's still down 6.5 laps now, according to my screen. So I'll have to check if this is calibrated correctly. But he's still apparently really down on ERS, really down on fuel, and really down on tyres. So he is really pushing hard at the moment, is that McLaren driver. And he's now well within the DRS territory of Sam McKay. But I have got absolutely zero doubt here that with the lack of ERS management, he's not really going to be able to chase down 3rd place as it stands.
Yeah, I hate to question the telemetry, but I do think that fuel gauge might be a bit wrong, because -6 laps is quite something. So
I'll pop 50p at meter and see if it just resets it, because he's apparently now down 14.5. So yeah, I'm going to say that's wrong.
Yes, maybe wrong. As Cypher just makes the move on a mean, by the way, so he's back in this DRS train, which is very good news for him, as he's into P8, but he has 0 ERS to play with. That light is flashing. With regards to Matthew, I would say he's going on a very aggressive 1-stop personally. I think he's going to try and overtake these 2 cars here and then pull the trigger for the undercut and hopefully jump both the cars if he can and close up to Nick. If he does a 2-stop, I'll be very surprised, because it's a much slower strategy around here, but anything's possible. It's Saudi Arabia.
Oh, here's Sam McCabe. We're just on board with him at the moment, as that's definitely going to be a track extension warning, and that will be another one as well, as he's starting to try and push against LCR Leopard for Team Shazoo in the Mercedes in front of him. Now, you'd have to expect here that there's probably going to be a penalty looming maybe on LCR Leopard's head after that incident, potentially. This is obviously not, I'm not a steward, I'm only the person that shouts down a microphone, but the incident between him and Scyther looked very precarious, and unfortunately that issue, and that's LCR Leopard, who has spun the car going through there. Looks like a big bottom out, and Shazoo are losing points left, right and centre. 8th, 9th, 10th for the Mercedes, and he was on his own. It was a really unforced error from the Shazoo driver, maybe some early onset pressure from Leopard. He's now down to 10th place, and now Sam McCabe on for some big points at the podium for St. George, but Matthew is still trying to close down that gap. He's up to 3rd.
Matthew's going to be licking his lips at that, because he's now going to get a free overtake on McCabe Sam with the DRS as Rev overtakes Finn, and Cypher's going to go around the outside as well. What a move if he could pull that off. Doesn't quite have the traction. Finn having a bit of a hard spin, but yes, Cypher gets the move done. Really good move there, but yeah, Leopard losing it on that infamous curb where if you just take too much, you will bottom out. And not the debut Shazoo were looking for. They were so strong, and they've unfortunately undone that hard work. And that promotes Matthew into P3, which is quite incredible, and hopefully he can keep that up.
And he's still trying to keep that close proximity with Sam McCabe at the moment. He's now heading around that first sector, and he's keeping it nice and tidy at the moment, with that medium tyre really starting to wear thin at the moment. And I'm fairly certain that this is calibrated fine. 45% wear at the moment, so 55% total degradation on these tyres, and you can see he is beginning to snap this car back in line and tell it to behave, because these boots are starting to wear pretty thin, but he's still within close proximity of Sam at the moment. The hard tyre, despite it being a very durable tyre, isn't a very good race tyre versus that of the medium tyre, but the medium tyre working a treat. The question is Matthew going to have some serious problems on that hard tyre while everyone else is on the medium, because this inverse strategy is all about Matthew making these positions up. Is a podium realistically what he's looking for, is my question.
Yeah, that was my next point. Obviously, he's got the... Oh, sorry, we've got a yellow flag. I think WR booked at the moment. Oh, sorry, fail. Oh, so is that safety car? Yes, it is.
It is a full
Take
safety car, and PSR Nick is thanking his lucky stars that the safety cars come out exactly right on cue for him to come into the pit lane. So PSR Nick, he hasn't been given any time here. 6.7 seconds he managed to pull against Sam McCabe and FRA Matthew. Really, really good racing from him. A second and third place all coming in as well. Montoya coming in at his teammates' expense. Rev Caterpillar up to 5th. Scyther is also coming in. Finn is also coming in. Amin is coming in. Quantum is coming in. Would you believe Leopard's coming in? Maybe Bobberts? No, Bobberts is coming in as well. I think everyone's going to be coming in here. We'll have to see. Is Clone Troop coming in? He is. Piccolo, yes. JTO40, yes. Jack, yes. Stonks, well, his ghost, yes. WR Buck, is he going to take the gamble to stay out? No, I don't think he is. He's coming in, as well as Akos and Phoenix. So everyone is taking this opportunity, I think. To be fair, it was in and around the sort of pit stop strategy you'd expect. And with the safety car likely to be going on for about 3 laps, 11 lap stint on a set of medium tyres is not unheard of, because we've literally just seen Matthew do it.
I think Matthew's going to be quite frustrated with that. He's done all the hard work to get the gap to the hard runners, and now he's bunched up with all the medium runners. So he's going to have one difficulty warming the tyres up on the second start, and he's going to have a pace deficit to the cars behind him. So Matthew's going to be in a very tough spot come safety car restart. Someone who gained from that little shenanigans was VLX Quantum, who's gone up into pit 7. Maybe because the Alfa Romeo pit box is so far down the pit lane, so he didn't have to wait for anyone, and he's come out in 7th.
So, role player 1 have lost a driver in Teo, and it's brought the safety car out here on lap number 12 of 25. If you're just tuning in, welcome aboard to Season 2, round number 2, here at the TPS race at Jeddah. And I'm looking forward to being alongside you for the second half of this race, alongside, of course, your man, myth and legend, Ollie Loveland, who is really loving this race, I'd have to say. But the question I've got on my lips, in my head at the moment, if you were our FRA Matthew, surely you take the gamble, come in again and go on a set of softs. You've got to.
It's tough. I think he'll lose too many positions, because if we look at the gap to leader, he will go all the way down to P18. And I don't think he'll be able to make the progress, because obviously with a rolling start, the gaps aren't going to be... Well, you're not going to see as much carnage as you would on a normal start, so the field won't be as spread out. And I think that'll be a bit too much for Matthew to make up. So I think he's just going to have to firm it on the hard tyres, which is going to be difficult, but I think he's got it in him. He showed arguably the quickest pace of anyone this race. So yeah, he'll be interested to see, as I think by the time this lap finishes, we should be getting underway.
So FRA Matthew is staying on the hard tyre, and he is going to be the hero of FRA if he can stay within the podium sitting as it stands on that hard tyre. His tyres will definitely go to the end, no problem at all, while the others may have to manage their tyres somewhat. It was about 55% wear when the safety car came out for Matthew, so there was definitely a little bit of health left in the tyres, but he was certainly having to deal with a few snaps here and there as a result of the tyre degradation. And keeping an eye out as well on those towards the back, as Phoenix 23 seconds behind and losing here, so I'm expecting safety cars probably coming in at the end of lap 14 is what I recommend is going to be well, it's what I reckon the time is going to be, rather, as they head down the long left-hander here. And there's an opportunity as well to have just a quick check in the chat here as people tuning in as well. Thank you very much to every single one of you tuning in, of course, as we've got a congruent viewership of around about 43 and 146 people tuning in throughout this race. Thank you very much indeed to every single one of you tuning in on this, our first stream as well on YouTube as well, from the Switch from Twitch, you'd have to say. The question has just come in around VSR Finn. Has he spun? The question, I'd say, the answer to that, I'd say, is no. I think with the Ferrari pit being so early in the pit stop and everyone coming in, he probably got caught up in all that traffic, and that's the reason why he's lost so many positions, because he was up, as far as I'm aware, up around about P5, P6, something like that. So to lose about 4 positions would immediately tell me he got caught up in a bucket load of traffic.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. I think he also lost a few positions just before the safety car came out. He didn't have DRS to the car in front as a safety car was in this lap. Someone I'd like to keep an eye on is AEMJT. He's worked his way up back after that incident lap 1, and he's in the points. We get top 15, get points in TPS, and he's in 11th. So if he can bring a good haul of points home for AEM, I think he'll be over the moon after that lap 1 incident. So he's my one to watch on this restart.
Damage limitation, I think, is going to be here for the likes of VSR.
Oh, he's gone.
Maybe even here, and he has gone very early, has Nick, and he's caught everyone napping. What a race it has been so far from Nick. What a qualifying, and it's going to looking very much like this is going to be a Grand Slam so far for PSR as we go green again here in Jeddah, and Nick has gone super early and caught everyone napping and already pulled the DRS on Sam McCabe, and that actually is going to be a big thank you to PSR Nick from FRA Matthew, because now McCabe is going to be struggling a little bit here for St George Esports, and with the hard tyre on FRA Matthew's car, you suspect he's going to want to try and hold on. If he can stay within DRS, he can keep in the train, and that is only going to help him on this hard stint.
Yeah, I think Matthew's definitely got the pace here to keep up with Sam. Doesn't look like he's struggling too much, not pushing the car too much, just happy to sit behind and save them tyres while everyone burned up their mediums. So a pretty good restart from Matthew, but Nick just went so early. He caught me off guard. I wasn't even looking. So really good restart from Nick. Maybe a good call from the PSR strategy in the Xbox party they're in. So props to them if it was their call, as we've got a yellow flag. Who is that for?
Trying to figure that out myself at the moment. A yellow flag, I believe it's for one of the Red Bulls.
Yes, unfortunate for Bobbits. Not a great day for CRT again. Obviously Bobbits retired on lap 1 last week, and this week they're running 18th and 19th, so really not the start to the season that CRT wanted, as Cypher makes the move for P4 and PSR into 1-4, and now Cypher sets his sights on FRA Matthew. It's like last week all over again.
He's flying high at the moment, is the PSR driver, Scyther, after that little incident that happened between him and LCR Leopard. Now LCR Leopard, perhaps in the eyes of Scyther, he'll say, that's a bit of karma, that, isn't it, for botting out on the curb. He's now down in P8. But now Scyther has got his eyes set on trying to overtake the FRA driver. Now, of course, FRA second in the standings at the moment, but they are going to be losing buckets of points, of course, with Stonks out of the race. He is ghosted at the moment, and Matthew really having to commit to the damage limitation race, as are VSR at the moment as well. So it's a real opportunity for the midfield runners to go and earn some big points here tonight in Jeddah. But Scyther is looking to try and continue the form of PSR and try and make it a 1-2. And, well, let's be honest, the host team are going to be really happy with the performance at TPS tonight as it stands, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, I've just had a look at the warning situation with drivers, and Cypher is on 2 warnings, so with 10 laps left, all it would take is one moment going wide, and he's going to drop down all the way to 10th, I believe, maybe even worse. So these drivers are definitely going to be taking it very carefully in these last 10 laps. But Cypher is burning a lot of his ERS, because Matthew's lost DRS to McCabe Sam, so could be the one to watch in this next lap when DRS is enabled.
He'd lost it on the corner just before the detection point. Can you believe it? Very unfortunate stuff for Matthew, but the hard tyres really are now not showing their non-raceability, I'd have to say, and that inverse strategy really not working a treat at the moment for FRA Matthew, as Scyther is still trying to close down that gap against the FRA driver, but as it stands, FRA Matthew just holding on. RP1 Matthew on for Montoya, sorry, on for some good points at the moment for the RP1 team, despite Teo's, should we say, dismissal from the race after he crashing out early on in this session, which obviously, of course, brought the safety car out. But 10 points are going to be heading the way of RP1, and that is really what they need at the moment. Up on 13, they'll be up to 23 as it stands with that one. And of course, with the rest of the field, including the likes of VSR, dropping points, that is going to be a real opportunity for RP1 to close down the gap on the likes of Visceral Racing. So keep an eye out then on also the GOAT of the chat, apparently, Red Caterpillar, up in 6th place for Novus at the moment, who are on for a double points finish as it stands. Amin also in 9th place as well. They're currently on 2 points as it stands at the moment, so this will definitely help them out, and that will actually take them up to 12 as it stands.
Yeah, a really good day for, as you said earlier, the midfield teams getting a lot of points with some of FRA's misfortune, with Stonks not being able to rejoin the lobby, I believe. Not quite sure what happened, as Cypher's actually waiting behind Matthew. I don't know if you're watching this, but we're going to see some Jeddah-esque tactics coming out here, Hamilton Verstappen-esque. But I think it should be an easy overtake now. But Matthew is going to burn. He doesn't want to let Cypher pass, but he doesn't really have a choice, because Cypher's going to breeze past into P3. And as I said earlier, it's going to be a double podium for PSR.
There's certainly going to be a double podium as it stands, of course. Remember, he did end up having that incident earlier on as well with another driver on the field. I can't remember exactly who it was. They think it was Clone Troop did Scyther, so he may end up getting a time penalty from the stewards later on in this race. And of course, if you are very much interested in all of the ins and outs of what's happening on TPS, don't forget to follow our Twitter at TPS_F1, and of course keep an eye out as well on the YouTube channel as well that you are watching this race on as well. Of course, there'll be highlights, and I'm sure many other pieces of content that this YouTube channel will have to offer to really expand the TPS brand, which I have to say starting to look mighty fine.
Yes, that is the goal. We want to grow hopefully to the biggest tournament on Xbox. We've got a bit of competition with World, as I know you're familiar with. Very, very good tournament, established brand, so they're making us really up our game, which is actually very good. We haven't had that before, as Bobbits has gone for another spin, and I believe, nope, Stonks is in AI, so my bad, but Bobbits had another spin, as LCR Leopard climbing back up the field into P7, and he's going to set his sights now on Rev Caterpillar. So after that unfortunate bottoming out on the curb, he's definitely making a charge, and Shazoo definitely going to jump up the standings a bit at the moment.
I think the chat kept repeating the same best tourney on Xbox, so I think that's where TPS are going to try and keep themselves at, to say the least, as Quantum's still trying to put pressure on LCR Leopard as well, actually. It's the Velox drivers. Velox looking to get their first points on the board at the moment, and he's staying in P8. His other Velox driver, and that would be Velox Jack, currently down in P14 after just being overtaken by WOR Buck. For Artemis, as we've got Anine with a time penalty for track extension, so now the time penalties are really starting to come into play here. And remember, Quantum also has a time penalty as well, so the last thing he wants here is for other people to just stay within track limits, actually, or for him to gain any more time penalties, because Velox are on for some points for the first time in this tournament, and I think they're really going to need it. And the other team that's still yet to get points at the moment actually are Continental Racing, and they're well out of the points at the moment, down in 17th and 19th place respectively.
Yeah, the problem with this track is that you see massive DRS trains forming, so if you do get a penalty, you're going to drop, and you're going to drop like a rock in a river. I believe Quantum and Amine are going to drop down to 11th or 12th or 13th respectively, so they're going to be trying to make some moves, pull a gap, and pray to the gods that everyone else around them gets some warnings themselves, because it's put them in a bit of a tricky situation at the moment, because they are just going to drop a lot of positions. Do we have any movers on track? Montoya is actually quite close to Matthew, and I think he's just going to sit behind him and set up the move come the end of the race, as he actually goes very deep into the final corner, and now he's going to have to burn a bit of energy to stay in touch with Matthew. But I think Montoya could be on for a P4 if he can hook up this move.
Of course, remember as well, we've still got that race with Scyther as he's really starting to close down the gap on the St. George Esports driver of Sam McCabe. He's still now within a potential overtaking opportunity, but the Williams Mercedes is really starting to struggle with power at the moment, down to around about 24% on my screen as it stands at the moment. As regards to the electrical energy, actually a little bit above that one, as CRT get their first penalty of the day as well, 3-second penalty for track extension through Phoenix, down in 17th place. And then Scyther again is able to just put Sam McCabe under some pressure here, but the St. George Esports driver, regardless of what happens, is going to be very happy here, because as it stands he's going to be on the podium, and St. George going to be very happy. They're going to be earning some big points as it stands through Sam McCabe. Clone Troop though just out of the points, down in P12 at the moment. They're battling with Artemis.
Yeah, JT just sitting in P11 after his unfortunate mishap on lap 1, but with the penalties ahead he's going to finish P9, and I think for Artemis they'd take a P9 quite happily. That's a good haul of points for the team. Very, very strong in qualifiers, surprised a lot of people, so it's nice to see that they are picking it up, as Jack has had another spin, unfortunately for the VLX driver, and he's down to P17, which puts ACOS into the points. So VSR scraping that final points position, but still not the day that they were after.
Of course, top 15 scoring points here in TPS, which is offering some real opportunities for those drivers out on the field to get some points on the board. Artemis are obviously getting some points themselves, and they're going to need it as well. And some points on the board as well for St. George Esports with that 12th place for Clone Troop, as I mistakenly said he wouldn't do, as we've got a bit of a battle happening with LCR Leopard going for the dive against Rev Caterpillar, but not going to wait this occasion. Very well caught. Tank Slapper, as again he bottlenecked up on the curb, and that bottleneck obviously on the acceleration pedal as a result of a bottom out is what I was meant to say, as Quantum's still trying to put pressure on, but in the end chose not to go for that overtake, as we've lost the driver. And Amine has gone out of the race. It looks like he's lost it going through turn 4, and that is a massive incident actually. involving that driver, and there'll be no safety car as it stands. We're under the virtual safety car, full course caution. Felix Jack will come back here, and it is a big smash for the HSR Amine, and that is for Team Novus, who run for some really good points here, and suddenly they've only got the one driver on the field and we're down to 18.
Yeah, them medium tyres possibly overheating. He flung it through the left, went through the right, and the car just did not stick with him. Lost the rear, snapped, smashed right into the wall, and a very big crash. But the VSC is already finished, so we're back underway. Big winners from that, not really sure. Everyone seems pretty content, nothing too crazy going on. But I think Cypher will be the one to make the next move because he's eyeing up McCabe Sam for P2.
Absolutely right. We go green again, man, here in Saudi Arabia. Very quick VSC as well for the unfortunate demise of Amine. People in the chat as well. Brett Norman in the chat saying I feel bad for him. He was driving a decent race. He absolutely was, actually. Was Amine. And Novus now only down to the one driver who could have really could have done with some good points there. But unfortunately, we're only going to have the one driver on the field as it stands. Then we'll keep then going into turn number 1. Cypher still trying to close down the gap on Sam McCabe. But I'm wondering now if he's now beginning his management strategy, not just on the ERS, of course, that he lost trying to chase down Sam McCabe, but of course on the tyre strategy as well, because of course these tyres are now going to start coming into a situation that's not going to be very healthy at the moment. About 33% wear is currently on the hard tyre of Matthew, and about 38% to nearly 40% on Cypher. So we're going to start to see that difference between the medium and the hard tyre kick in maybe within the next couple of laps, but that's only 2 laps of racing available to Matthew to try and reclaim that podium as it stands.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ACOS and the VSR boys may need to have a look at the rulebook because he's just pit out of P14, I assume, to get fastest lap. So he's lost 2 points to possibly gain nothing. So interesting strategy from VSR. I think they may not be aware that the top 15 get points. So ACOS throwing away 2 potential points there for VSR. So their day has just not gone the way they wanted, unfortunately.
You know,
but Quantum right now, right behind Leopards, we've got a yellow flag, and I believe that is Mr. Bobbits again. He's having a tough day. He's
having a really tough day at the moment. He keeps going for CRT as well, and he hasn't crashed out though, bear in mind, and that even if it's a race finish, it will still all count in the end if we end up getting matching points. So keep an eye out on the rest of his performance as well. Akos, as you rightfully point out, down in 17th. I don't know if he is going for fastest lap or if he had damage or something, but you're absolutely right. He won't be getting any points if he gets that fastest lap anyway. And it's worth mentioning, I did keep saying that VSR were perfectly in sync with each other, but this race has shown completely the opposite. That's why I apologise, VSR, for what is clearly been a complete glitch on myself to offer you that little bit of praise, shall we say, and then completely jinx it for the VSR boys, as we're just keeping an eye on PSR Nick, and he is still flying high at the moment for Paradox Sim, as Paradox is still trying to make it a 1-2 as it stands as Piccolo for Shazoo. 3-second penalty for him. He's down in P13 at the moment, as Shazoo trying to get their double points finish on the board as well for their first race of this tournament, as we head through the next section of corners, and Cypher again keeping it very nice and tidy behind Sam McCabe, but he's not pushing.
Keep an eye on Matthew. I think the tyres are coming into the hard window now. The mediums are dying off a bit because Matthew's gained 5 attempts alone this lap. Obviously, he's not going to have the DRS to catch up to the second and third place, but through the middle sector, he's gained so much time. So keep an eye on Matthew because he's on the charge now.
Keeping an eye on the tyre degradation, as you rightfully point out, 45% at the moment is the worst tyre. No, sorry, 49% is the worst tyre, and that is the back right tyre, which does tend to take the most hammering around Jeddah, is for Cypher. And I'm wondering if he's just going to keep an eye out on FRA Matthew, who's lost a bit of time actually on that final corner. He's now 1.9 seconds and losing buckets of time here. I'm not sure what's happening with Matthew, but he's got a 3-second time penalty for his troubles. I don't know if he's got a hardware problem or something. I can't remember if he's on wheel, but has he lost force feedback is the first thing that's coming to my mind here, because he is really struggling all of a sudden out there. Montoya now with a time penalty as well, as he's, I think, potentially being caught out by the sudden drop in pace for FRA Matthew. I don't know what's happened there, but it looks to me, with how he's turning at the moment, I'm not sure if he's on a pad, correct me if I'm wrong, but that looks to me as if he's suddenly got a hardware problem.
Yeah, he is a wheel driver to my knowledge, so you could be in the money there. He was gaining a lot of time, but yeah, as you said, he lost so much in the final corner. Obviously, maybe that was because he didn't have DRS. Yeah, he's picked up that penalty, and actually puts Rev Caterpillar into net P4 with 4 Novus racing. They'll be absolutely chuffed if they can finish P4. So big points coming in for the midfield teams here. But yeah, Matthew, very odd situation, and I think that's his chance of getting a podium completely shattered.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a monumental effort, though, from Matthew regardless, because he was well down the field, starting P20 as well, after obviously being banned from qualifying after getting that pole position lap time at Bahrain last week by exceeding track limits. And regardless of whether it's purposeful or accidental, rules apply, and unfortunately for Matthew, he had to start all the way back, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be the P4, maybe a podium that he wanted, but it's certainly going to be a great effort if he can at least keep it within the top 7, top 8 after penalties are applied. Ref Caterpillar, as you rightfully point out, the GOAT of the chat, P4 as it stands at the moment for the Novus driver, and you say rightfully pointed out, even with Amine's dismissal from this race as a result of that DNF, he's on for some big points for Novus here tonight for Rev Caterpillar. Great racing from him.
Yeah, I think they'll be looking to try and claim the best of the rest position. I mean, FRA are not going to be scoring as much points as they'd hoped for, so I think the field's really going to close up in the standings, unless you're PSR, who are currently first in the standings, and they're on for a 1-2, I'd say, because Cypher is right up behind Sam, and you'd think he's going to get that position. But I won't speak too soon, because Matthew is catching a lot, and we know Jeddah, there could be some absolute carnage at the end, but Cypher is definitely pushing on, and he's burning everything he's got now, so let's keep an eye on this battle.
Here we go then, the last couple of laps. Sorry, my voice is starting to go already, can you believe it? There we go. A very intriguing scenario. I was just making note about what's happening with FRA Matthew. It did say that potentially it was a hardware problem for him to lose so much time and then get a time penalty. Looked to me as if he was wiggling his wheel a lot, which would tell me he had a bit of an issue as regards of his force feedback, but I've just been rather told by Crispy he doesn't usually have wheel issues, and he reckons he just got a snap, which would maybe argue to the point about the issue with FRA Matthew, but he's lost a bucket of time in that second sector, and again he's struggling with pace all of a sudden. Now Montoya's putting some serious pressure on the McLaren, as Scyther has just made a move around the outside of turn 1 into the inside of turn 2, and Scyther will then retake the lead of this race. However, Sam McCabe has been really pushing that car to around about 14% ERS now, and he is now down to around about 41% on his tyre, and lost a driver. I think that's VSR Finn has spun the car for VSR in the Ferrari, and that is a big loss of points for VSR. That's the last thing they needed in their battle with the likes of FRA, and potentially as well RP1, who are really showing some pace with Montoya, who might be on for P5 as it stands, or maybe P6 after the penalties are applied. But it's all about whether he can get in front of Matthew. Rev Caterpillar is still in the battle here as he tries to hunt down, but LCR Leopard is hunting Rev Caterpillar, and he's also struggling with the power unit at the moment. Is Rev Caterpillar with the Renault power unit is struggling with electrical energy, but the Mercedes power unit in the back of the Merc is also down on power. So we've got DRS available for those in 6th place at the moment. That's a battle for 4th, remember. They're going to continue their battle as Jack has just made a move on Phoenix down in P14. Scyther is holding on here, and of course maybe some time penalty may be applied for the instance that happened across this track, but regardless what happens on circuit as it stands, Paradox Sim Racing have been flying hard around this circuit and around this season and are suggesting that they are a serious force to be reckoned with. Make that a 1-2 for PSR with Sam McCabe for St. George in P3. LCR Leopard in the end will beat Rev Caterpillar on the line for P4, and Shazoo will take some good points on their debut tonight. Novus will take 5th. FRA in the end will take 6th after the penalties applied. RP1 will finish in 7th. Velox take their first points of the season in 8th place and with 14th as it stands as well. And Artemis also getting some good points as WR Book managing to bounce back really well for P11 with JT040 in 9th, and rounding out the top 10, Clone Troop for St. George.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you, but there was a 3-car collision at turn 2, and that's why there was the yellow flag. We saw Finn spinning, JT also was round, and so was Clone Troop, so a big collision. And I think we're going to see a lot of steward reports. So yeah, looking forward to that. But that's Jeddah for you. That's why we put it on the calendar. We like a bit of carnage. And second week in a row, we've had an absolute thriller.
Absolute thriller, usually from a track that doesn't really bring the thrillers, you'd have to say, as well at Jeddah. We'll have to look forward to seeing what we've got at the Great British track next week. But let's go to the podium ceremony and enjoy what has been a fantastic race for the hosts. That is PSR and TPS will be happy to hand them the first place and the second place trophy for what has been a monumental performance from the guys, and of course specifically from Nick, one of my drivers of the day, definitely alongside Matthew, for what has been a great performance all weekend. And I believe as well that he just missed out on the Grand Slam, not getting the fastest lap in the end. Of course, I think Akos took that one after moving over to the soft tyre. So Williams will obviously spray that champagne all around, and of course a cracking podium position for St George Esports through Sam McCabe. What a race it has been indeed from him. So let's take a look at the standings that are very much provisional. Keep an eye out on our Twitter at TPS_F1 for any changes. I'm sure that will be mentioned. PSR Nick in first with Scyther in second place for TPS, for PSR rather, sorry, in this TPS race. Sam McCabe in third place, as we said, for St George. Mercedes and Shazoo in fourth place, and then Novus for fifth. FRA will take sixth place, and it is damage limitation, but a cracking race nonetheless from Matthew from 20th. RP1 Montoya in 7th, Quantum in 8th, AEM GTO 40 for 9th, and then Clone Trooper 10th with Buck, Finn, Piccolo, Jack, followed by Stonks in 16th, but Stonks obviously will not classify with Akos, Boberts, Amine, and the rest of the field all at the back. That is it. It's been a monumental race here in the track in Saudi Arabia. However, we do move on, as we said, to the Great British Track next week. We are in Silverstone. Hopefully you can join me, you can join Ollie, and you can join the rest of the team here in TPS. From myself and the rest of the team here, thank you very much for watching, and we'll leave you with the knowledge that we are sending our regards to the royal family for Her Majesty the Queen, who recently passed away today. Bye bye for now.